Coronavirus, COVID-19 continues to spread all around the country and the world. And the president thinks that everything is going just fine, but I've put together some of my favorite amazing bungles so far. And I just wanna go through, just so everyone gets a feel for what I've been feeling going through the news about this. So first we're gonna go with our dear friend Ben Carson, who was on one of the Sunday shows with George Stephanopoulos, who asked, in the wake, there's this cruise ship that's been off the coast of California, and it's supposed to come into shore now. About 50 hours before it's supposed to dock, the president had a meeting with those people to come up with a plan through Mike Pence, and Carson was asked about it. Here's his response.
They are coming up with a plan within 72 hours of that meeting.
The ship's docking tomorrow.
The plan will be in place by that time, but I don't want to preview the plan right now.
Shouldn't you be able to do that?
I think it needs to all come from a solitary source. We shouldn't have 16 people saying what the plan is.
Okay,
particularly when it hasn't been fully formulated.
So Ben Carson, he doesn't want to talk about the plan, which doesn't exist, but will, even though by the timeline that he set out, it won't exist. Ben Carson is a doctor.
Ben Carson is like, you're in a restaurant and someone is choking and it's like, does anyone know the Heimlich? And someone's like, I don't know, but I know how to do this with my tongue.
And also like Ben Carson's like, someone's choking over here, is anyone a doctor? And Ben Carson's like, I am. It's like, okay, come over here and save their life, they've got seconds. And he's just like, okay. And then he just goes.
Here I go. Yeah, no, it's like, it is so offensive to Ben Carson and to all doctors that is literally what's happening in the White House is let's just wheel out a doctor. And to be honest with you, I saw this whole interview and I feel like he's doing a better job at preventing himself from saying something he will later regret or giving out misinformation, because the truth of the matter is they don't have their messaging straight. And so at least he's like erring on the side of caution.
But at least you need to communicate to us that you do have a plan for everything. I mean, I know he doesn't have a plan for housing and urban development, which is his actual job. And similar to how they just brought out a doctor for this, they just brought out a black person to be in charge of HUD, let's be honest. Okay, the next thing was this image of Matt Gaetz, who in the wake of, amid the flood of coronavirus reports said, reviewing the coronavirus supplemental appropriation and preparing to go vote. This is when they were voting on the amount of stuff they needed to appropriate to deal with the virus, the $8 billion I think it was. But like this looks like an image from a sexual harassment training video. This is bullying, this is what you learn about. This is bullying. Like I feel so bad for the person who has to stand there next to him as he's wearing a gas mask.
Yeah, but it's like a sexual harassment training video once like according to men's rights activism. It's like the female will try to bring you into her orbit and trick you into harassing her. Therefore, you must wear a mask. Like, also, he had to approve that photo going out and he looks absolutely ridiculous.
Someone tweeted like men are not funny. I think it was Aaron Ryan, like men are not funny, because this is like, he thinks he's being absolutely hilarious. He's trying to-
is that what that is?
I think so. He's trying to downplay the crisis.
Yes,
somehow.
Okay, I get it. Oh, right, they take nothing seriously.
Everybody's overreacting to this thing that has literally killed people. And I didn't even pull that video where there was some financial advisor who was like, I think you reported on this as well on Friday's show, that was like, hey, maybe we should just give it to everybody.
Yeah.
But like that's the thing. And for him to say that he wasn't, this is all overblown and no one's been exposed to this crisis. Here's a little bit. At the conservative CPAC conference, an attendee of a conservative conference where the president and Vice President Mike Pence spoke last week, an attendee has tested positive for the coronavirus, according to the event's organizer. So CPAC, not to mention APAC was contaminated. Matt Gaetz is trying to play this down while half of Congress the conservatives are being exposed to this at CPAC.
Yeah, conservatives, that's interesting how it's hitting them harder. And I'll just say, life finds a way.
Life if you're going to
finds a way.
Divine intervention, like the chosen people.
Yeah, coronavirus is like, Mother Nature is very much like, oh, y'all are gonna elect Biden, nominate him as to go against Trump? Okay, we're gonna do this my way.
It's amazing, and like
coronavirus is making Democrats look weak, is what I'm trying to say.
It is trying to make Senator Ted Cruz and Paul Gosar said they aren't experiencing symptoms. They were at CPAC, but will self-quarantine until 14 days have passed since the interaction at the conference.
His family's like, oh no, Daddy has to go into quarantine. We can't give him a hug or kiss.
Right.
Oh no.
Paul Gosar is the representative whose family made an ad saying like, we're for the other guy. That was the one that had like 5 brothers and sisters be like, I'm Tammy Gosar, Billy Gosar, Tommy Gosar. We all endorse our brother's opponent. So apparently the family's been self-quarantining for quite some time now. Not to mention Mike Pence. They'd said that Mike Pence and Donald Trump were not exposed to the virus at CPAC. They stayed away from him. But still, this headline from a week ago says Mike Pence shook hands with classmates of a Florida schoolboy who's now in quarantine with mother after she, quote, came in contact with a coronavirus patient. So Mike Pence, the guy in charge of all this, the virus czar, may have exposed himself to some children. And I know that sounds weird, but I'm talking about a virus.
You have to find some joy in all of this fear. And I think we found it. Obviously, we don't wish ill on anyone, but I do think it's ironic that the guy who actually believes in Old Testament plagues is in charge of preventing an Old Testament plague from taking over the country.
We have a plan for if there's frogs and boils. Yeah. If there was a coronavirus, as opposed, if like the 10th plague wasn't the angel of death, but rather COVID-19.
Like he might come out and be like, well, that maybe that little boy was living in sin and he was looking at the other little boys and COVID-19 is God's will. Like that's not beyond the pale at this point.
Another thing that happened, the Dow drops sharply after markets reopened following a 15-minute trading pause in the wake of oil prices going way down because no one's using shipping as much as they used to. People aren't traveling as much as they used to. So the demand for crude oil is going down. And there was a couple things about this headline, about what's happening here, is they went so crazy on the floor of every stock market in the world. They have a rule where they have to take a 15-minute timeout.
Yeah, is that a moment of silence?
It's just like a wait till the cocaine wears off. Just take a second, yeah. Just drink some half and half and get it, get the cream to just like coat everything.
Out of those little containers. Just pound some half and half?
That's a Brooklyn Nine-Nine joke.
Okay, I was like, all right.
But like,
go with it.
So we have that, and then Trump's response to that was Saudi Arabia and Russia are just arguing over the price and flow of oil, and the fake news is the reason for the market drop. No, it's not, dude. The reason for the market drop is because this is like phase 2. Yeah. There was a lot of people being like, I'm gonna sell off. This seems like an international crisis, may affect the global supply chain. Things like the oil, OPEC trying to get everyone to lower the price. And then Russia saying, no, bro, I'm not gonna do that. And then Saudi Arabia being like, well, then I guess I have to mob style, like bleed you dry. That's happening because of coronavirus. It's not just them arguing over the price of oil. That's why this is step 2 of many steps, bud.
Yeah, Corona is, again, I will say it again, it's big old socialist. Just like, crashing markets, filleting capitalists left and right. This is it. I mean, but to be totally serious with you, like it is scary. Obviously, there are people whose lives are invested in the stock market for right or wrong, retirement funds that shouldn't be but are. But it is a little bit of a glimpse into, I think, what a lot of specifically climate activists have talked about when it comes to what would like a post-fossil fuel future look like? And what would it look like if we bought locally and we didn't fly goods around the world at the expense of the world, right? And it would mean there would be less growth for the 1% and for a particular class and elite of people.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean, though, that we're all going to perish. And I don't know about you, I mean, unless there are like millionaires and people with a lot of stock out there, like that's great, good for you, but like most folks don't live that life.
Yeah.
So I think it is this bizarre moment of, yeah, if there are major stocks markets crashing, how do we have to turn and rely on ourselves and local economies and local communities? If I may be so revolutionary.
Yeah, yeah. If we are dependent on the sun and oil futures plummet, then this statement is like, oh God, sorry, bummer.
Thank you, Brad.
The last thing that I want to show you is Trump when he's asked about what's going on here and the severity of the crisis. He cannot resist the opportunity to talk about the town hall he had on Fox. Take a look.
As of the time I left the plane with you, we had 240 cases. That's at least what was on a very fine network known as Fox News. I know you love it, but that's what I happen to be watching. And how was the show last night? Did it get good ratings, by the way? I don't know. Oh, really? I heard it broke all ratings records, but maybe that's wrong. That's what they told me. I can't imagine that. But what
Asked about the severity of the crisis, he's like, "Do people watch? Did people watch?"
Ew.
And I gotta believe that like the sound in the background, they're on one of those like Avengers style helipads. It's just like somewhere, like what are we doing? Where are we? He's at the CDC for that, but.
No, and he looks like even more disgusting than usual if you get a chance to watch this, just in a zip up jacket and a horrible red hat.
His font size has increased.
The font size is bigger. It actually looks like it's been photoshopped onto his hat in post. And clearly making everything about himself.
Yeah.
And I think that's what even people who somehow still support this president have to remind themselves of, that this guy will throw everyone in the entire country under the bus. You can all get sick if he did well on Fox News.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.